nothing too crazy. I think Roger left the game, didn't come back with the shoulder. We'll see where he's at this week. Still don't quite know exactly where all those things are at this point. And then Kenneth Murray left with the hamstring strain towards the end of the game. And again, we'll see where that's at as the week goes along. Those are the two that are of note from the game. And then we'll just, again, see how Wednesday comes along. But feel the exact same as I felt last night. That was a surprising result. That was a game that I felt confident we were going to play well in. I thought the week of practice pointed to that being the case. And then really a sort of a compounding of errors early in the game led to a lead that was hard to overcome to get to that point. Played better in the second half once we settled down, but too much to overcome in the early part of the game. There's some positives to point out, but at the end of the day, we didn't do well enough, particularly early, to give ourselves a chance to win.
Were you surprised at all? It sounded like at least Jeffrey seemed to suggest that maybe there's I think what he termed like a little bit of a hangover factor of success. Were you surprised to hear that, and what's kind of your reaction to it?
Yeah, I didn't sense that. Look, those guys are entitled to say what they think and feel after a game, and sometimes they say things that I didn't necessarily see it the same. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, you have a performance like that, and you're sort of grasping for an explanation on why. And there really wasn't one, other than we made too many errors early in the game and put ourselves in a hole. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what it was. You watch our first punt and our punt cover. You watch those guys cover, and the energy and the effort and the excitement and the defense is coming onto the field. There wasn't anything early in the game that made me feel like we were at all in that place. And, we give up a long run for a touchdown. And then we don't do much on offense the second series. We get a first down or two and put ourselves in a spot to convert a 3rd and 4. The ball gets batted. Those things happen, and then they go down and they score another touchdown. It's 14-0 pretty quick. And before we even really have a chance to do anything with it, we fumble the ball on offense again, and they go down and score. And then we fumbled in kickoff return, and they go down and score, and all of a sudden it's 28-0. And there really wasn't a lot of football to be played at that point. But the football that we did play wasn't obviously good enough at any point. And so when you ask a guy after a game how they feel about things like that, I think they don't have the perspective. They haven't watched the tape, and they are also searching for an answer that doesn't feel like it was a surprise to them as well, that it got out of hand so fast. And so, yeah, I didn't sense that at any point during the week. I didn't think that was something that we were going to have to deal with. And, my message all week to those guys is that you deal with two things in the NFL all the time. And you deal with either prosperity or adversity. Those are the two things that you deal with. And things are either going poorly or they're going well. And both are equally difficult to deal with in their own right. And those are things that you have to work through. And, and then the message on Saturday before the game was you got to prove it. Prove that last week is who we are. And we didn't do a good enough job of that. So I didn't have any sense at any point during the week that we had relaxed or thought we had arrived. That certainly wasn't anything from my side that I felt, and I just think the mistakes led to an early lead that was insurmountable for us at that point.
On the special team side of things, you made the change. Do you approach how you handle special teams differently this week? Knowing the accumulation of things that didn't go right.
Well, the special teams wise, the thing that didn't go right was a turnover.
Over the season, things have just.
Yeah, we got to find a way not to turn the ball over. That's the biggest issue. And so, yeah, there's plenty of things that we've done on special teams that have got to be better. I thought we covered particularly well in the game. But, yeah, again, no one really wants to hear about that. So, there's things that we got to keep working on and keep looking at, and disappointing that we put the ball on the ground.
Can you explain what it is about punt returning, kick returning that is such a specialized skill in your eyes? You've alluded a couple of times to not anybody can just go back there and do it.
The catching punts is challenging, and then catching punts with a live coverage coming at you is a whole nother piece of the game. There's also a mentality that most returners have to have, because those guys those are big collisions. There's a bit of fearlessness, and it's just not for everybody. Just because a guy's good with the ball in his hand doesn't mean he can field the punts, judge the punts, and then still be able to transition and get vertical upfield full speed versus a full speed cover. It is a skill. It's a unique skill that I don't think just every player is capable of. I mean, you watch guys try to catch punts. It can look pretty ugly sometimes, and the catching of the punts first and foremost. You got to make sure you secure the football, and then the return part of it's the next part. So need to get more out of that phase than we've gotten, and again, you got to be able to hang on to the football on top of it.
Is there a plan to bring somebody in and test out free agents at that position, or do you want?
Yeah, that's all on the table. Yep.
Is there a
Is
reason
Mason
why?
an option? Mason Keeley?
Yep. Mason is an option. Obviously, he's done it before. I've not seen. I mean, I've seen him doing training camp, but he's played in games, and so yeah, he's certainly an option. And we'll look at all of them.
What went wrong when you went back and watched how successful they were running between the tackles yesterday? Something that you guys had
Yeah.
hung your hat on, and how much was the linebacker position, the triage going down and down the depth chart? How much is that impacting your ability to stop the run?
Yeah, I think there's the two things that are involved in that. One, I think the scheme with the quarterback run game is unique. They do a good job. We didn't do a good enough job. I don't think we fit a couple of runs well enough. And sometimes when you misfit a run, it pops for 5 or 6, and when you wrap it up, well, we misfit a couple that pop for 15 and 20 and 30. And that's where the issue comes in. So we definitely misfit some runs. We weren't necessarily gapped where we were supposed to be gapped out. Part of that's the linebacker spot. I thought we could have been better setting the edge, physicality wise. I thought that there was one or two that got out on the edge that we didn't do a good enough job. So it's an everybody issue. You know, when you give the runs up the way we did, you know, it's especially in a one back run game, it's the old one back, one gap, and everybody's got to be where they're supposed to be. And you have one guy out of position, that can lead to an explosive run, and that's what makes run defense hard. Is that everyone's got to be right, and we weren't right enough times.
What efforts, if any, were made in game to try to address the bleeding in the run defense?
Yeah, I mean, you talked to Denard probably more about the specifics of calls and stuff, but certainly try to find some things that, you know, try to hit a couple calls that you can try to knock a run or two out, which we did a couple times. You know, but really it was just the accumulation, one, of them having a big lead and being able to just keep handing the ball off, and two, of some misfits and not necessarily gapping the runs out the way they should have been. And again, you just over time of the game, it wore on, and we couldn't quite stop the bleeding in the run game over the course of 4 quarters. And you know, again, there was some good stuff that happened, but it's the ones that we missed that they made us pay for, unfortunately.
Jeff wasn't the only guy that had that kind of hangover and trouble dealing with success idea. That was somewhat widespread. Just the concept of dealing with success. One win, are you guys at such a point that like one win qualifies as such a level of success that guys have trouble dealing with coming out of it?
No, not at all. I mean, no. We, you know, as I even said last week, is that, you know, it's one win. We haven't arrived. We haven't done anything that would require us to have to worry about that. And all we're trying to do is stack good weeks together. And I thought we were on a good trajectory, a big win on the road, and to come out and play the game the way we did was just disappointing. To go down in that game early and not be able to come back. And yeah, there's no part about anything that I feel or our team should feel is that you know, we guys should have an issue dealing with that. And again, that's after the game and in the heat of the moment. But yeah, we shouldn't have had any issue.
Although you don't feel that way, that is, you know, what came out of the locker room yesterday. Like, you hear that, do you think like maybe there's something different you need to do this week to, you know, make sure that that's something that's tucked away and not come out again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all ultimately is my responsibility, and if that's the way that the team feels and something didn't go right, and whether I was aware of it or not, you know, if that's the sentiment, that's a sentiment, and I can assure you that's been addressed.
Is there a level of learning to win that adds into that stacking part? That it's not just enough to do it one week, but in this league you got to figure out how to string 2 or 3 together. And I guess now, as you look at guaranteed a losing season, playoffs are unlikely. How important is it to find some of that in December now to
Yeah,
build?
very, very important. No more or less important than it was last week going into that game. So yeah, we're trying to build some consistency. in the NFL, it's a lot of it is about not losing the game first. And we do right now with the amount of penalties and turnovers we've had. We put ourselves in position to lose games and not win them. And so, yes, there is an element of learning how to win. And what I mean by that is you have to make sure you're consistent from down to down, from series to series. How many good series can you put together? How consistent can you be in that approach? And ultimately, we have not been very consistent. Too many ups and downs, too many turnovers, too many penalties. Those are all things that we have got to do a better job. And again, it starts with me of finding a way to improve those things because, you look over our history here. And again, you guys brought the stat up last week, and it is legitimate that you've only won back-to-back games. It's been 36 games since that's happened. So yeah, there's an element of learning and figuring out how to stack consistent performances. And no better example than a performance in Houston and a performance in Washington. And we got to do a better job of stacking consistent performances. And that's down to even as granular as how consistent you are in practice. That's consistency from down to down in a series to series, quarter to quarter, game to game. And that's the goal, is we got to find ways to be more consistent so that we can have consistent results. And right now we don't have consistent results, which is largely due to our inability to be consistent in things that matter in winning and losing football games.
You made it clear you
like
understand.
this secondary to be aggressive and to be physical. Is there a point, though, that the cost outweighs the benefit there? And I wonder if you're starting to see that a little bit with the amount that are called against the secondary?
Yeah, when you're not winning games and those are affecting you, yeah, certainly. But there's an aggressive style you have to play in a secondary. There's plenty of teams that get called for lots of flags too. We're not the only ones that get flagged for those DPIs and holdings and illegal contacts. Those are sort of that's kind of secondary play around the league in general. But most importantly, though, is that for a guy like Jarvis, who's got I think 9 penalties, I think he leads our team. And he's a young, scrappy player that's playing aggressive, but he's got to clean up some technique and hand placement. And he's learning in this league that if your technique and your hand placement aren't right, they're going to flag it. And some of them are hard lessons, but they're ones that are true. If they're going to if you're in position and a flag is thrown, whether you agree with it or not, whether it's a clean call or not, it doesn't matter. They threw it. And the biggest issue we have is those penalties a lot of them are occurring on third down. And they're keeping drives alive. Particularly, there's the one driver we had 2 consecutive third down conversions off penalties where the defense does their job. They get a sudden change, a short field, and they get you into a field goal spot, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. And we let them off the hook with a penalty. Same thing with Arden. Arden's got to know that you can't hit the quarterback in the head or neck. That's very clean and simple. We watch it every week on Fridays, and we watch stuff from around the league. They call those things at a rapid rate, and you can't finish with your arm, in your head, in your hands, or on the quarterback's head or neck. They're going to call it every time. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the consistency from down to down, from doing the things that lose you games versus doing things that win them. And if you look around the league, the teams that take care of the football and they're not penalized very much, those are probably the teams that are in the lead of their divisions and have 8, 9, 10 wins.
Did Jerome Baker get caught out of position a few times? Yesterday, it appeared that, things kind of went through his gap a couple of times.
Yeah, he had a couple misfits. Certainly, those are things that he's got to clean up. And I think we can be a little more physical at the point of attack, helping him out from the other spots as well. But yeah, there was 1 or 2 that he misfit that let some runs get out.
That was a pretty average weather day for a November, December outdoor NFL football game. Were you alarmed to hear Jarvis say that he thought guys weren't ready or didn't deal well with the cold?
Yeah, of course. That was alarming to me. We practiced in it all week. We were out there all week. It was colder here at practice than it was in the game. Again, if that's the case, that to me sounds like that's an excuse. But no, I mean, that was about as fair weather a game as you could possibly ask for in December. So I can't comment on where that would have come from, to be honest, Paul.
On the Levis evaluation front, basically handed a 28-point deficit early and then asked to throw the remainder of the game. How did you feel his 4th game post-injury went?
Yeah, I think he did some really positive things again. He stacked really 4 weeks now of growth and good football. I thought he made a couple really fantastic plays. And again, when you're dropping back that many times with that kind of deficit, you're getting everybody's best stuff. You're getting their best rushes, they're getting their best pressure. And I thought he did a nice job of trying to keep fighting through the game and finding completions. Still got things to work on, but I'm very positive on the things that he did in the game throughout the course of it that showed that he's still growing and still getting better. And again, there's plenty of things that he's got to keep continuing to improve on, and some things that we can keep manufacturing in practice to help him, particularly with the pocket and some of the escapes in the pocket where we're not taking 1-yard sacks. We're getting on the perimeter and maybe making some plays or getting a chance to extend it. So those things are things we'll continue to hammer. But yeah, certainly a good enough performance by Will given the circumstances.
For clarity, was the incompletion intermediate middle of the field to Ridley where he stopped running? What was the miscommunication there?
I don't know if Rid felt like because what happened is Will started going left, and I think Rid kind of checked back and saw him going left out of the pocket. And I don't think he realized that he had a clean lane. You can't necessarily see where the quarterback's at, but he felt them leave, so he was trying to figure out if he was going to turn back and try to get back in a scramble drill with them. And then the ball shows up, so he was trying to see where Will was at. Didn't realize Will had still had a pretty clean access. Thought he might have been scrambling because of the time. But again, those are things that we got to connect on those. That's still another big play that we left out there. And just got to do a better job and continue to run the route and not reacting until it's time to react.
You got Tajay back. He only played 14. Will you try to increase that workload as the weeks go by, or is this one of those games?
Yeah, it was really the biggest issue was that he didn't take a ton of practice reps throughout the course of the week. He's still trying to get through the protocol, got cleared. And then I think really the game situation ended up kind of screwing a little bit of that up as well when you're trying to throw the ball a bunch, not getting a chance. I know we hardly ran the ball at all in that game, for a good reason, but that was probably a bigger issue, but than it was necessarily just not playing him for any other particular reason. But part of it was the practice. He didn't practice a ton this week.
Was there an injury with JC at some point, or did he just kind of have to play through it?
Yeah, he got hit pretty good in his quad. I'm sure it hurts like hell today, but nothing of any seriousness. But yeah, he got hit pretty good. One of the pass reps, they ran into each other at the back of the pocket, I think, and he got right in the top of the quad.
It's not really a secret now that NWI catches touchdowns, but he continues to go out and do it. What has he done to be so consistent in the last 8 weeks and make big plays?
Nick's the guy that I point to for everybody and for our team. On top of it is a guy that does it the right way all the time. And just like you said, the word is consistency, and he's on top of his. He very rarely has a mental error. He's willing and physical in the run game. He blocks his tail off in the run game. He does a lot of the dirty work too, because he's so sound and knows where to go all the time. And then when the ball's in the air, he makes plays. And everything about how he goes about his business, his approach, his professionalism, is what you want. And you want as many of those type of guys as you can find. And he's the example to me right now of what that's supposed to look like. And I'm happy for his success. He's deserving. He's earned it. And he just continues to keep making plays. And we keep throwing the ball if he keeps making plays, and that's been a really positive development, both for him professionally and for us as a football team.
Brian, it seemed like Will was more comfortable in dirting the ball and doing it quickly rather than trying to push it. I think he did one to the left and to the right. Is that accurate?
Yeah, those are important parts of playing the position where, particularly on an early down, a first down. I think I called a bootleg on an early part of the game, and the end didn't quite react, and he's kind of up the field, and the route wasn't there with the timing of the defensive end, and so Will just dirted the ball instead of taking an 8-yard sack on a naked. And to me, those things are what progress looks like, and that's not necessarily exciting. It's not something that you're going to point to and jump up and down about, but it is an important part of playing quarterback, of knowing when to get rid of the football, knowing when to not take a negative play. And to see him do that on 2 or 3 occasions in the game was, for me, really encouraging. And those are the things that were sacks, a month ago, that we ended up taking 7 sacks, and 2 of them were because we're holding the ball on the perimeter on a first down where we can just throw the ball away. 1, save yourself the hit, and then 2, save the morale of the offense, and we'll just go to 2nd and 10 as opposed to 2nd and 17. So growth there for sure.
Guys like Watson and Cheeto, you optimistic they get back in the mix this week? Or
yeah, Cheeto practiced last week, so he did a good job, and hopeful that this week we can get him back ready to play. So we'll see. Leroy as well is still on the we'll see. I think he has a chance to return to practice, but we'll see what that looks like, come Wednesday. But he's definitely improved.
And that long shot to Ridley down the left sideline, was that as simple as it looked? Did he just overshoot him a little bit there?
Yeah, just a little bit. Those are a throw to Chig and a throw to Calvin down the field where we got guys. You got a guy beat, and you have a guy in a trail position who's running to recover, and what you'd like to see there, instead of trying to make this kind of perfect over the top throw, is put a ball in position where a guy can go turn and go get it. And so now you give him a chance. It doesn't have to be a perfect throw, but you got a defender with his back turned chasing, and all you got to do is turn and go up for the ball, and the defender's going to run right through him anyway. So it's going to either draw a DPI or it's going to be an explosive completion. And so those are the types of layered throws, different types of throws that you got to be able to see in the moment and make. And again, there was two of those that I thought he could have put that type of ball in the air for Calvin and then for Chig to give him a chance to go get the ball, and then at worst case, you're drawing a defensive pass interference.
20 minutes that mattered, the defense didn't seem that into it. Is there an inflection point here where you've got to make sure you get them back?
I'll be honest. I didn't. When you watch the tape, it wasn't necessarily that it was a level of interest or anything like that. I think they were playing. We just were not playing well, and I think there's a difference. That part of it, we got to play better, and we got to fit runs better. We got to be more physical. But everything leading up to the game and into the game still felt very much like normal. There wasn't anything that felt different to me, other than the fact that we didn't execute very well at the end of the day. But if there is, then that's something that I will absolutely have to address. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. Again, they might be able to tell you more than I can, but I didn't feel that from them.
With the penalties, Brian, just as a whole, I think you guys are the second most penalized team in the league right now.
That's
Has there
correct.
been a point in time in your career where that's been an issue and something was able to fix that? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, it's an emphasis on, first and foremost, technique. That's a lot of penalties are. Is being out of position, not putting your hands or your feet where they're supposed to be, and then you get beat because of it. And so you do something like grab, you put your hands in the wrong spot. That's the first thing. The other part of it is the ones that we can control, pre-snap penalties, jumping off sides. Those to me are inexcusable penalties because we know the snap count and we shouldn't have an issue. So those are the things that the ones you can control, you got to control. Some of them you don't. But when it comes to technique and the emphasis on those things, that's usually where a lot of penalties come from.
Are guys doing those things because they're not good enough?
No, I don't think so. I think you see, for example, like Jarvis. Jarvis is a very capable and good cover corner. He plays it with an aggressive style, and it's just the hand placement sometimes is a little more aggressive, and then he gets called for it. So that to me is not indicative of talent. That's just being able to be more disciplined with your hands and playing more football. Again, same thing like Arden's penalty. That's just knowing that you can't hit the quarterback anywhere near his head, and they call those. So I don't feel that's the case. And then we jumped off sides twice. That's not a talent issue. That's a focus and understanding issue more than that is anything else. So I don't feel that way. No. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You make of the idea that this team potentially struggled with success and dealing with success. A couple of guys brought it up in the locker room. Is that something that you feel like you felt throughout the week?
I think we've been making mistakes from the beginning of the season, and we're still making the same mistakes sometimes, and we got to clean that up. I mean, you play bad football, you're going to have bad results.
With that, there's so many young players on this team. Trying to get somebody to stop making mistakes, how do you get that to translate from film study, practice field into games?
I mean, honestly, a lot of teams have young players. Even the winning teams have young players. I don't think that's an excuse. It's the NFL. We got to get the job done. I mean, we got to be able to learn from our mistakes, and we got to correct it somehow. I don't know the exact answer. Every team's different. Every player's different. Everything's different from, different perspective. I think guys just need to learn to focus better and be able to correct those mistakes.
sack numbers are what they are. Yesterday, it looked like Will started to get some of that under control, with dirtying the ball. I think he only took 2 for 2 yards. How much progress do you think there is between the 5 up front and Will in that regard here in the last couple of weeks?
I mean, definitely just keep working on that. Will's doing a great job, and I mean, he plays his butt off every play. I mean, you can see it. There's a couple plays he had that were just fantastic, and that's why you see the amazing talent he has. We got to be better as an offensive line, communication as a whole, everybody. I mean, it comes down to all 11, even like receivers getting open, and the receivers have done an amazing job. I mean, there's plays where they're open and they're doing an amazing job out there. I think it's just as a collective 11 guys, we've got to be perfect, because I mean, that's the game of football. You can have 10 guys perfect on every play. As soon as one guy messes up, I mean, you do that on every play, you can have a horrible game. So, yeah.
You're down 28-0. I think Coach said you only had 10 offensive plays at that point. How much of you guys got back within 2 scores? How much was Will kind of taking over, trying to get you guys back into that game?
Yeah, I mean, Will did an amazing job. He's for a second-year player, he does a great job leading. I mean, everybody was talking about it, Coach. When you're in that situation, there's not much you can do other than one play at a time, and that was the big goal. And we were just trying to one play at a time and try to dig ourselves out of a hole that we dug a pretty big hole.
Daniel, penalties have been one of the things that I'm sure you were alluding to, of things that have kind of lasted all season, and there have been too many. At this point, do you put your finger on, are these mental kind of focus issues? Are they technique issues within a play? Guys just getting outmanned? What do you think it is?
Both. I mean, false starts are nothing but mental most of the time. Some of it translates from previous games a little bit. I think like JC's to start the game, I'm not making an excuse for him, but I mean, Daniel Hunter was a great player and had a great get off and was really timing up those cadences. And I think JC, kind of that first play, like he didn't want to, I mean, it was a pass play, he knew it, that we were going to pass the ball, and he didn't want, that guy to get a jump on him. And I think that's why he kind of had that mentality. He's like, hey, I'm going to get off the ball here. And he just kind of went a little too early. And so I think you can't let, a previous game affect you. And I'm not saying that's exactly what it was. But that's kind of those things, and it's just kind of the focus. We got to, lock in, and we got to learn, and try to get better. And then some of the other penalties, I mean, there's some technique to those, like holding penalties and stuff. But also we can put ourselves in better situations. I mean, all the things that we've done, like we were talking about penalties, we're talking about sacks, we're talking about all this stuff. And at the end of the day, too, if we can clean up first, second down, I mean, we're not in 3rd and long. We're not in these terrible situations. We're not down 28-0. We're not 3rd and 22 to start the first drive of the game. I mean, those things, you're going to be in bad situation. You're going to have a lot of bad things happen to you when you put yourselves in that spot. So we got to clean that up on early downs and distance.
Early in the year, you guys talked a lot about feeling like you were close, even though these mistakes were kind of starting then. Do you feel that way still? And if so, what is the connection to kind of get from close to where you want to be?
Consistency. I think, yeah, we're close. I mean, you can watch the Houston game. I mean, we weren't even perfect in that game, and we, put up a good amount of points. We had, special teams and defenses and everybody playing off each other, to where if one side of the ball messed up, then, the next person stepped up for them and stuff like that. And so, like, that's, where you can see a team kind of evolve, and you win a gritty game that, should we have won? I don't know, because like we did have a lot of mistakes to where, like, we could have shot ourselves in the foot again, but we found a way to win, and that's like the part where you can see it coming together. And even versus the Commanders, we're down 28-0, and you said, we get the score back to where it was like reasonable. I mean, it was an embarrassment either way, but there's things that are good. It's just we can't do so much bad that it makes it an uphill climb every game. And that's the big thing for us. And I think you can definitely feel that. It's just we have to consistently do it. We can't do it for 1 week, or we got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And it's a 17-game season at minimum. That's what you're guaranteed, and so you got to do it week after week after week, and I think that's the big thing.
Excuse me. You mentioned weathering that storm and having that fight back ability. How do you feel Brian Callahan has done, just as a coach, like getting that to emanate from him?
I think Brian's done an amazing job. I think we got to do a much better job helping him. Because I mean, like even in those games, I mean he came into halftime and his message was, I just want to see you fight. Like he didn't care about what the freaking score was. He just said, I just want to see a fight. And so, I mean, he kept telling us one play at a time and keep going. And he was aggressive the whole time. And no matter what, he never said the game was over. Like he was fighting, to the last second. And he's done that all year long. And he's, at some point as players, we just have to be better to where we can't let these mistakes. Like we've done that too long this season, and we got to find a way to make it happen. And we got to do something for Coach, and he's done an amazing job for us, and we got to find a way to be better for him.
Along those lines, at 3-9, you've got young guys in the team whose college season would be ending right about now. How much does it need to be driven home that these last 5 games matter? We may not go to the playoffs, but this still matters. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the playoff. I mean, I haven't looked at it, so don't take my word for this. But technically, I don't even think we're out of it. So that matters. I mean, the fact that we somehow have a chance. I mean, and I know we're going to need some help, but that part matters. And then building into next season, guys got to take pride in that. And at the end of the day, it's also just pride in not getting embarrassed. I mean, that last game, I'm sorry to say, it was an embarrassment. And we gotta take pride in ourselves, just as players, as individuals, to just want to be better there. Did you have one?
Well, yeah, following up on that, there's division games left. 4 out of the last 5 are in the division, which helps set up this franchise potentially for next year with scheduling and things like that. So being able to win in the division, at least a step toward that future? Yeah.
I mean, it's always, divisional games. I mean, those are your kind of rivalries. I mean, you play those guys twice a year, and so, it gets chippy, and you want to get after them. And so I think that's another thing, like you said, we just take pride and, don't let them do that. And last year, I know we ended the game with the Jags, and I know that was the biggest thing because, we weren't in the playoffs, but we were able to take somebody else out of the playoffs. So that was kind of fun. But, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, but I mean, that's the Jags. They're probably thinking about that the whole time. I mean, that's why they want to come play us. They're kind of in the same boat as we are, and so, like I said, it just kind of comes down to pride. I mean, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.